What is it about riding a bike that is so liberating? What unites us all is the craving for that special feeling. This is what inspired the developers at Garneau to create the innovative, award-winning X-Comfort technology, optimizing comfort to maximize performance and, most of all, the good feelings that make us so passionate about riding. The brand new X-Comfort Zone incorporates an elasticized zone that expands up to 5 mm to accommodate V through D+ foot widths. We all pedal in the same way. As you push down, your toes naturally splay. And the dynamic changes that happen inside your shoe as your feet contract and expand under pressure as you ride. The pressure and friction created as the outside of your foot expands over and over against your shoe can create serious and painful hot spots and irritations. The longer you ride, the worse it can become. This makes for a level of never-before-experienced comfort in the highest performing cycling footwear. Every cyclist rides for that special feeling that cycling brings to us. Each one of us has our own version of what it means to enjoy the ride. We just help make it possible.
Go down the road.
Go down,
all right? Don't
breathe,
throw your arms in the
recover.
air. Don't do anything crazy. No random shit, okay?
I had my own strategy. I was actually working for you guys. So what I did at the last moment, I just pulled back. So you guys need to buy me some beers.
Esports. We love to play. Since the 1980s, video games and competitive gameplay have been part of our Western culture. The video arcade, the Atari, Nintendo, PlayStation, even PC gaming are all part of this rich cultural lineage of play. We play ourselves, we watch, we even compete. What makes an esport? Well, any individual or team game that can be played on a level playing field in competition, whether that's live or online.
Still alive! Charm's still alive! Is he going to be able to walk away? Baker is still running, still damaging, and another turn, and expansion goes down!
While there are half a dozen top-tier esports, more than 100 different titles are being played competitively around the world. Esports break all boundaries. They're played by men and women across cultures and can be played on consoles, PCs, and even mobile devices. Esports are truly a world sport. Over the last decade, we've seen interest, broadcasting, and live events eclipse those of their traditional sport counterparts. Esports are a massive draw. We love to watch them live, and we love to watch them stream. For people under 30, video games are the most popular media industry in the world, more popular than television, music, or movies. But competitive video game play is not just something we do, it's something we watch. In 2016, more people watched the League of Legends Championships than the World Series, the NBA Championships, or the Stanley Cup playoffs. That makes the top 3 sporting events in the World Cup, the Super Bowl, and a video game competition. Esports are the sport of the rising generation. Talented players, broadcasters, and managers are filling every level from professional, now to collegiate, high school, and even Pee-wee. To many, esports is the biggest world they've never heard of. But to millennials, it's the future of competition, of broadcasting, and of sport. But not the distant future, the future of today. This is esports. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is CVR World Cup the regular season, week number 5, in fact. Each week, we bring you an amazing race, or actually 8 of them, all across the world. This is Zone E, and we're excited to bring it to you. This is going to be exciting. Things are starting to shape up, and we're seeing unbelievable changes throughout the world. This, paired devices, that's all just part of it. Real bikes, real people, real world virtual racing. So people can come from all over the place, and we are excited to have them here. Here's what we're doing today. It is the Greater London Flat Course, and it is, in fact, pancake flat, 41 kilometers, only 90 total meters of climbing. That's about as flat as it gets. They're going to go 3 laps, and this is a sprinter's delight. Who can get away? Who can sprint for the finish? It's going to be an exciting one. You cannot miss this one. Here in Zone E, here's who you got to pay close attention to. Jeff Muse is a guy who's been steadily climbing the ranks here. He's been always near the front of the group, but doesn't quite have the points yet. He's trying to take down Lars Peikenbrink, who is the leader on the board today. A guy that everyone wants to beat across. That smile, I want to wipe it off his face, and so does Jillian Bearden. Who is the leader of the women's group right here. A Beth York disciple, if there ever was one, of course. Ava Buchholz trying to hang on to the top of her division. Those are 2 of the big matchups here in Zone E, and we are excited to bring it to you with only 30 seconds left before we kick this thing off. This is the men's pen, and when that laser gate drops, things are going to go crazy. Hello to everyone out there on Mixer, on Facebook, on all the different platforms you're watching. Throw in a question, throw in a cheer. We'll see if we can't get it right here on the broadcast. So glad to have you here. It is time to kick this thing off with 10 seconds to go. You cannot win it when the gate drops, but you can certainly lose it if you're not ready to go and jump in the group. Who is it going to be? We'll find out in just a couple of seconds. Gate will drop. Power will come up. You see the legs starting to spin a little bit faster, and boom, they go into the big orange numbers, which means they're going dang fast. McCormick, Olsen, Vildago right up there near the front where they need to be. A couple of other folks. Warbritain just trying to hang on to the back of that group as you see him just up ahead. Skolsgaard also in there. Here's the main group, and we see Joachim Plommers in there as well. He raced not 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago. He finished his race that the great Beth York and, of course, Frank Garcia, my compatriot today, who will be joining us in just a couple of minutes. But you see here the front of the group, Morrison just trolling the front. There are a few folks that I just mentioned that you should expect to see. Jeff Muse doing what he can to stay at the front of that group early on. Sports Spinner, that's probably not a real name. Ostreg, that is a real name, most likely. And, of course, Matt Looker, who we pointed out last week. There he is, Adam Webb, One Love, from the UK, coming under the Prudential banner. You see the power-ups, which are all supposed to be dropped before we hit that point. A little bit of a climb here, 3% coming up and out of that section. This is one of the tougher sections of climb that they're going to see, and it's still just on the run up here. Adam Webb is hanging out right there, head down, at least on his avatar, probably in real life too. We'll check on these riders momentarily in real life as we pull them up on the system. Now, of course, if you want to see these folks over at cycleview.cvrworldcup.com, you've got all sorts of folks that you can follow here. Mike Szymanski, Jillian Bueller, Simon Nielsen, Gemma Onkers. We argue about that. Carrie Conabear in the women's group who's just about to start here. Mark Lay, Christian Moxon, a bunch of these riders that you know. England Red is, of course, one of those women's riders you can expect to see lots from today. Okay, the men's group starting to settle in here. We're just a couple of minutes away from the women's start, maybe inside of a minute right now. This is how it'll kick off. And you'll notice those that are caught in the tail of the comet could be jettisoned into outer space here any moment. We certainly don't want to see that happen. It's probably not the best to be hanging off the back of that group and tail gunning. Kurt Pavel's in here as well. Here we have one. This is what that looks like. This is Jeff Muse, just a disembodied personage floating amidst the avatars there. But different people broadcast in different ways. We certainly do have a standard method where you get full points. But as we kick this off, let's get just a sense of the sanding that is happening. Again, you can kick it off with the CycleView app, jump over into that group, and figure out all of the details of at least the standings. But thank you for joining us, those of you who are joining us on Mixer, on all of these cool places. Thanks for joining us. This is so awesome, Beaver. That's why we do it. Okay. In the women's field, kicking it off right now, we see Jen Bearden, who I just mentioned just a little bit ago, trying to get back into that group. There are real teams in the women's field that you got to pay close attention to. And it looks like there has been a jersey added or a jersey change for one of those groups. And it appears to be Team Fearless in the gold jerseys. We'll talk about them in a little bit. Team Vixen is another one of those. Those would be the Velocity Vixens. These racers from all over the world come together for this purpose. A big kick off the front. Smolik and Inslee jumping off the front of this thing. Wilkinson, Mary Wilkinson, who we know very well with an outstanding performance. However, Mary's not going to be able to do what she was doing last week because there are no hills to speak of. And in a few minutes here, when we get Frank in, that's one of the things we're going to talk about, the changing character of what has happened as we've changed courses. Still in London from last week, there's Carrie Conabear, her racer view. You can see the fan in her hair trying to keep cool as she comes up and over this little bit of a rise as they come to that Prudential start-finish, which we saw just a little bit ago. But Carrie Conabear, England Red, her teammate also in there. She got a little bit different jersey today, but people are going to know exactly. Sorry, Fearless is the team for England Red. That is not Carrie's team. She, of course, is on Team Velocity Vixen. And this is a strong field of Fearless riders. England and Carrie raced together in CVR World Cup LA, which was at the end of March. And the next one is coming up. So if you're just joining us, these racers racing from all over the globe, 8 different zones. There she is right now. Anker's right there. Yes. And we've gotten quite creative with the chroma key drops in the background. We have a fox doing some kind of dance, maybe running in place, maybe doing the running man. Hard to tell. She takes a hard lean to the right. She's a tough one. Guns N' Roses. My goodness. Oh, now you know who would love that is Beth. Beth York would love her some of that. All right, back to the men's field. Here's what we see. Adam Webb trolling the front of this group. It has gotten long and thin. Jeff Muse hanging on to that third position on the field right now. Berkhold drilling it on the front, just in front here. Blue jersey top, black in the middle, blue on the legs. But he moves into that second position as a few more folks come behind him, the BRT rider McCormick. And there are a few BRT riders in this group, including Griffiths. But we've also got a couple other teams represented. We'll talk about Race WBR in this group. We'll talk at length about BRT, about KRT, and some of these other teams. Team One Love, that's just you, Adam. That's just you, man. But Muse is the guy who we mentioned in the beginning trying to climb up in the standings here. You can check out those live standings over on CVRWorldCup.com, specifically on the CycleView app. A little link on the right side allows you to bring that up. We'll show you a little bit more about that. But this Zone E race is full of real competition. In this men's group right now, the best opportunity for the highest finish is for our guy, Jeff Muse. James McCormick has had some disappointing finishes so far down in the field. He's not a climber, but he is a sprinter. A few of the other folks in there who could maybe take this away from our guy, Jeff, today, including that Morten Vang, who is a Zwift verified rider. Matt Looker looking to climb up as well. He could find himself in a great position today. Who could win it and move into first place? Well, Steve Young could. Jesper Olsen could. Michael Durr could. And, of course, Morten Vang, who I already mentioned. Will Griffiths also in that group, but not in contention for those top spots. Okay, look at this. Riders right there. He's got his posters up, his banners up. He's showing everybody what's going on. This would be Thomas Gendrich right here. Team R2. You see it from his point of view. That is the great thing about Cycle View is you can tune in to the riders that you want to see. That's right, Mixer. You can actually pick the player you want to watch out of a field of players. You can even cheer for them there. We'll show you how that works maybe in just a little bit. Big kick off the front. Bordieri looking for a little bit of a gap. He wants to come across under that banner first and maybe see if he can take advantage of it. But this is a flat course. You're not going to be able to get away with stuff like that here. This is a completely different kind of tactic where you're just trying to soften up the legs of the field. They're trolling there at the front. They're not going to let him get more than a few seconds on him. And right now, when they're wide open like this, he's not out of sight. He's not out of mind. They're thinking about him. And see that big mass behind there? That is a group of riders that has way more aerodynamic efficiency than he does as a single rider. And you'll even notice, look at the average effort of just the person 3, 4, 5 riders deeper in that field. 3.4 watts per kilo, that little number right under their name. That's how hard they are working relative to their weight. How many watts they're putting out relative to their weight. Bombardier on the front, killing it at like 5 watts per kilo. Everyone else is at about 4.8. It tells you that that's not a serious move. There's Kurt Pavels right there with his Zwift experimental bike. He's chosen the light blue wheels. So we're going to bring in our guy Frank right now to talk just a little bit about the dynamics of a changing race like this where it's a flat course. You've got one guy off the front. He's got 5 seconds on him. They're not really taking it that seriously. Adam Webb looks like he might want to maybe do the work and pull it back, or maybe not. Maybe everybody's just going to chill and let him go. Is this a move of note, Frank?
I think they're going to actually let him go. He is on what we call Z power. That means he doesn't have a true digitization device for power. And so they're just waving to him saying, see you later. We're going to let you go because the real guys are going to stay in game and play for real. So I think that's what's afoot here.
I would have to agree with you in that. So he is now 11 seconds up the road. They're not really going to chase him. His heart rate maybe not the same as everybody else. Oh, my goodness. Cue swanky music. Jeff Muse deciding he is going to take off that jersey and show just his bibs there. He could be a lumberjack circa 1880, or he could be a man ready to deliver some pain to the rest of this field. He's in a great spot. He's got a real opportunity to move up in the points. I did not notice Pike and Brink in the field today. That means that he's got an opportunity to maybe just secure a few more average points over Lars that may get him the spot that he wants. All right, back to the women's field. Velocity Vixen rider right here. And how do you say it, Frank?
I say it, Carrie Conover.
Oh, I'm looking at Gemma right now.
Oh, well, if I would pay attention, I've got too many screens in front of me. but what we're streaming, yes, that is Gemma.
Okay, well, Gemma is awesome without a doubt. She, I love the game that people have included here, which is the creating and in this case, definitely created a unique GIF, basically animation that plays against her chroma key in the background there, which is just cool. You've got you got different folks, flying toasters. Yeah.
And one of the things that we can do, let me see, we can have both CVR World Cup branding, and we can have the branding that the athletes do, for their sponsors. So, we've got our sponsors, they've got their sponsors, and this format allows us to do either or.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. And people are digging it there. Hey, if you're just checking in, if you're on the Facebook watching us there, like Beth York, like Neil Stewart, like BJ Alfonso, Amy Levang, cheering for her fearless ladies, absolutely. They are out in force today. Good things could happen. Now, there's no team points competition, but there is a team pride competition, and you can check the standings of that on the heart of anyone who's associated with one of these teams. They're emblazoned there. Team Fearless feeling really good about their opportunity and their chances today. There's Carrie Conabear. You see things from her point of view. Asperheim just sitting in the front of that group of Styler, another one of her Vixen teammates trolling there. This is where one of those courses where a lot of team tactics can come into play, because you don't have the hills to sort out the strongest climbers from everyone else. You can survive a lot longer if you're not a super climber on a flat course like this. You can't get away. You can't use your watts per kilo as a weapon in the same way that you can use them on a hill. And Carrie is feeling good there at the front. That is her half smile. That tells you she is in a good spot and has confidence. Her heart rate fairly low. Her wattage output pretty good. They're going to do 3 laps of this, a total of 41 total kilometers, right around 26 miles. They're 4 miles into it, judging by Carrie. Well, this is interesting because Carrie, as a UK rider, has selected to look at it by miles versus kilometers, where you'll see the different folks. Now, they are on lap 1 of 3 here. They really just started the lap proper. All of that was a preamble to coming in here. Of course, we count it, but they're 21.3 miles to go. They're technically beginning lap 1 here. And here, as we look right now at Gemma, you see that she sees, a lot from this position in the field. That's a great spot to be. Conserve a little bit more energy, being a little bit further back. But she's definitely having to keep her cadence pretty high there. Her watts pretty high. She's moving to the front here. And her heart rate is quite a bit higher than Carrie is. Now, that in itself doesn't mean a ton, but it could mean, in fact, that she's not going to be able to sustain that for very long. Or maybe that's just how her engine runs. That's pretty dang cool. All right. A lot of folks, Pai Lang saying, go Carrie, saying, get it Gemma, cheering for these riders because they're on the same team. Pai Lang, thanks for joining us in the chat. Here is what it looks like out on course. This is the overall women's field of those who are listed here, the top 5 in the women's A: Mary, Carrie, Jillian, Lindsay, and Amber. This is the telemetry available not through the Zwift game, but through CVR World Cup. And it shows you where they are out on course. They're all in one big group. But look at that long extended tail coming in here. That was the lead up to start this course, right? The Greater London Loop. Okay. Back to the men's field. We see as they're coming up and through this section here, many of you know it very well. Those of you who ride, they are still collected together here in a relatively large group. In a moment, we'll check out the men's telemetry and get a sense of where things are at. But the folks that we were concerned about are all right there at the front. And look who is back. Bartieri coming back into this group. Okay, the men of note, look at those flags, a virtual meeting of nations right there. Or maybe it's just an IKEA banquet that's happening there, because you see the Swiss, the Netherlands, the UK, of course, and Canada. I think Matt's rocking. Is that the Hong Kong flag? I'm not sure what flag that is. Somebody want to throw that in chat? We'll always take it. But they are all together there in a group. You follow that little white dotted line down. It shows you where they are as a group. No gaps between them. Grupo compacto, as my friend Beth would say. Here we go. This is our guy, Michael Davis. Now, he is normally one of the racers that hits that later group. You know, we expect to see him late tonight, about 9 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Pacific, one of the last races of the day. That's where he's been dominating, and that's where he punched his ticket to the finals at CVR World Cup LA. But he's decided he's going to do a little bit different. Working on that top knot, my brother. I appreciate that quite a bit. That top knot is some big business. Thomas Gendrush right here in this group as well. Trolling McCormick just in front of him. Matt Looker also in this. You'll notice that at this point, no one's making a big deal of the overall pace. But it is time, I would believe, for some of these folks to start laying down. There's a name I have not seen, Frank, and maybe you can shed a little bit of light on it when you have a second. Kim Little, conspicuously absent from this collection today. And that's a little bit unexpected, except that he's been traveling a ton of late. Any word on Mr. Little and his overall well-being and health?
Yes, absolutely. He has been traveling back and forth across the Atlantic numerous times here as of late, racing, also traveling to London, although he's in the UK, so London's not a far trip. But I think all that travel, he's breathed a little bit too much airplane air, and he's a little bit under the weather, and so trying to recover for the weeks to come. Now, the good news is you can miss weeks. You can miss a couple weeks out of the 8 weeks and still compete for the overall lead. So we wish Kim the best. We hope he gets to feeling better. We know he's been working on tech stuff, so not complete rest, but certainly not heart rate of 180. So give his body a chance to recover.
Agreed. That's good. You get those. We count the 6 weeks here. I mean, it's the 6 best performances and the points associated with that. So you've got a little bit of time off that you can take here and still do very well. But these folks are vying for a trip to Canada, right? To Vancouver, Canada for the next CVR World Cup major event, which is a live event where these riders come in. Maybe major is not the right way to characterize it. How do you characterize this event? I mean, yeah, it's a huge live event with over $10,000 to the winner of these races. How about that for some physical esports?
Yeah, that's it's awesome. We have one that we call the major, which just happened in Los Angeles here in March each year. That is the pinnacle, you will. But we have 3 or 4 events throughout the year. The next one is in Vancouver in June, end of June, June 23rd, that weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So we're looking forward to that. We bring people in from all over the world, thus CVR World Cup. We race across 8 zones on Tuesdays. So every 3 hours, basically, you can sort of starts in, the Asia, Australian region, and then moves across the globe through Russia and India, and then Europe, and then sort of the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That's not as big a zone as you can imagine. Then you hit the east coast of the Americas, and then the west coast of the Americas. So you get a lot of people from all over the world racing in CVR World Cup. Looks like we got a little bit of an attack going on in the men's race. So let me just sort of take a look at what's going on there. But we're starting to get a long lead out line. If we check on camera 4 here, we can see that there's definitely some activity going on.
Yeah, there is. Adam Webb deciding he is going to show them, well, unfortunately, not one love, but one pain on his wheel. Bordieri also trying to catch that. Steve Young chasing on as well. Jeff Muse making sure that anybody who's going to bridge that up, he uses their energy counterattack over the top. They're not really taking that serious. Morty just up there in the front. That would be exactly where I would expect him to be. Now, there are a few folks in here that are pretty high in the standings, but high in the standings because they've been able to get great finishes here previously. But if you're a great climber, this is a scary race. That is not the kind of thing you want to engage in because great climbers always feel pretty secure in their finishing position. And they know with about half the race left, roughly where they're going to finish. They could move up maybe 3 or 4 points or down 3 or 4 points, depending on how things go. But a field this big, a group sprint this big, you could find yourself 10 spots further back than you normally finish. Even if you're a strong rider, you could fall way behind. You could see someone like Povels or someone like Bergholt not able to sustain their overall average points for the season just because they get out sprinted by some folks, or they get separated from a group that doesn't allow them to finish where they normally do. And that's not a good thing, is it, Frank?
No, the climbers, the sprinters fear the climbing stages, the races in a given week, and vice versa. The climbers fear the sprinting stages because in either of those environments, if that's not your thing, you can be shot out the back. You can lose 10 spaces easily. 20 points could put you at a severe disadvantage for the season. Now you get to throw away your 2 lowest scores, so it's not the end of the world if that happens. But there are more than 2 races that are flat, and so you've got to do well in at least 1 or 2 of those flat races in order to keep your overall points high if you're a climber, and vice versa if you're a sprinter type. And so this looks to be the all-around best racer when they race in the real live events. They race at stage race. It's a unique stage race in that they race it one right after the others. They get about 5 minutes break in between stages. They do 3 stages: a hill climb, a hilly race, and then a flat crit. And so we're looking to identify the best well-rounded riders who can perform well in that event.
And it's the best riders essential in that. I did get a chance to check out just a moment ago Julian Bayer, who is the French rider who is broadcasting from Team X, and he may have one of the coolest overlays ever. I don't know if that's something we can pull into the mix. It looks pretty clean on my end, but my goodness, how entertaining is that?
Very off the front here a little bit in the women's race.
Oh, yes, we do.
And
okay.
It looks like everyone's pulling her back in, but you can see if we look back here, you see that long, thin line that's forming up, and you've got people having a difficult time, sort of holding on. And we'll look at, for instance, Gemma, and see what it looks like from her perspective, as it looks like they're trying to form up a little bit of a break here.
Yeah, it does. Now, this would be really smart for Vixen to make sure that they get one rider in there. Now, the question is, are they working for all of them, or have they selected somebody before they came in here as the favorite? And often what'll happen is that you'll come together, you'll ride really hard as a group, and then somebody who's really strong today will rise to the top, and that's who you end up working for. You almost make a de facto agreement on the field. Now, I don't notice a lot of headphones with the Velocity Vixen riders, so I don't actually believe that they're chatting, say, in Discord about their team tactics. Now, there are teams that definitely do that. Team ODZ is insane with their race planning, but you see what they're able to accomplish with that. So many folks in that Zone C, they want to own that zone. I believe is the play that they're looking for here. All right, out of the saddle here. Not much of a climb, maybe just a little bit for Carrie Conabear, trying to just pull that back. She can't get caught behind that group. Gemma just up there a little bit more. She just found herself on the wrong side of a break there.
Yeah, Carrie maybe lost a little bit of attention there and had to work hard to get back. She was really comfortable, maybe a little too comfortable. And sometimes, that just happens. You're comfortable, everything's okay, and a couple people go off the front. You're not worried about it. You're kind of towards the back, and then, the line thins out, and then the breaks start forming in that line. And before you know it, it's like, holy cow, I'm in a bad spot here, and you have to work to get back. And so we really saw that. In terms of, Carrie climbing back on here. We're going to give you a still shot. The helicopter is behind a building here for Mary, but we'll give you a still shot on 9 just real quick. You get a sense for Mary, and we got at least one frame update there. We'll give you a sense for Mary. So hopefully we'll get the helicopter in a better position. And that's just a joke for everybody who's out there. Our feeds come in from all over the world, and whenever we have a glitch, I call it helicopter behind a tree or a building. But we work with the riders to get the best feeds possible for you to be able to watch the riders themselves, because sort of getting a hint, if we go to 5, we'll see Carrie's working really hard, head down, a little bit of a grimace on the face. She starts rocking here back and forth. Mary's really putting on the pressure, and you see Carrie having to work super hard just to stay in contact And that's what we want to see. We want to see, we call them pain cams, pain faces, whatever you want to see. But it gives you a feel for what this rider is really doing and how this esport is different than any other esport you've ever seen. And that is the physical effort, the heart rate pounding, not just because we've got super high adrenaline, but because we're actually doing significant physical activity. And Carrie's got to stay in contact here. She's got to put it all in right now.
Yes, she does. And this is the race. The entire race comes down to these few feet. She knows it. She's digging deep right there. She knows she's got to come on. But those other riders, maybe Styler wants to maybe fall back a little bit. But Bearden, who we mentioned at the beginning of this, needs the advantage in points. Oh, my goodness. A little bit of a hero. Asperheim comes around Helen. Thank you so much. Trying to pull her back. Gemma finds herself also on the wrong side of this break. 5 seconds back now. Now she has a teammate up there. Styler hanging on. This may be Styler's day. Very, very cool. But Conabear deep into the red. At least that's the way Gemma sees it. Trying to catch on to the back there. Asperheim and her working together. It's another 5 seconds to that group. But here's the deal. I think, yes, it is critical that they try to catch on here. But also on these flat courses, if you
look at the suffering.
Oh, look at that. Oh, my God.
I mean, she looks, and this is, I got to tell you, when you're a racer and you're this close to the back end and you see it and you're just at your max and you're sitting back down and you're standing back up and you just see that, right? That I just got to get right back on. And you see Mary at the front just pounding it, right? These guys they don't want Carrie back. They all want to stay away, right? They're working together as a group of women to stay away from Carrie, and they are working hard. Now, the question is, will they keep it up? Because Carrie's not going to give up. Carrie took the LA event. She won it, and so this is it. They've got her caught out a little bit, and they are going to make her pay.
Yeah, and she showed that she really can sprint, especially long way out. She can launch that thing and get to the chopper as she wants to be able to do. She did, in fact, manage to get a little bit of that time back, but she also can rest a little bit, but she needs somebody else. The question that I really have is, can Bearden, Styler, and Inslee keep this pace up? They've got Mary up there with her. She is the type of person who can just hammer these things. But Gemma significantly off the back right now, maybe just trying to put it back together. You've got Stotts behind you. You've got England Red, who is now in a completely different spot of the course and no longer chasing. Her heart rate, her watts per kilo low. But Carrie digging right now. The time to close is now. But she comes across, gets a good lap, smiling, eases it up just a little bit, spin those legs out, see how much recovery you can get. But as we look at the telemetry, we see the break on these folks. Now, you've got that that lead trio of Lindsay, Jillian, and Mary up there. Jillian Beard, who's the one that we were talking about just a little bit ago. Carrie now 10 seconds behind them. And Amber chasing even further back. There is somebody else, of course, Gemma, in that gap in between, but not referenced necessarily here. They just came to the finish, and that's an interesting piece. So just a quick question for you. We noticed that not all the riders are presented there in the telemetry, that there's a little bit of a selection based on who is placed in that telemetry design. So if you have just a second, you want to chat about it, just tell us a little bit about where this telemetry data comes from and how those riders are selected.
So the telemetry data comes from, we inspect a few billion packets throughout the day to pick where people are in game. And what we do is, it's not an unlimited display. So if you have 100 riders, obviously that display is not going to work. So we show the top riders in the league, in this case, the top 5 riders in the league, so that you can see where they are, with regards to their standings. And that's how we select who is showing in the telemetry view. And I think, Carrie's become unhitched. So I think she is in the red now. Don't count Carrie out yet. she often comes back towards the end as everybody else sort of relaxes. And so what you see is you see Mary on the front doing 4 watts per kilogram, trying to drive the nail into the coffin so that Carrie can't come back. And I think she's going to keep that up. I think it's a wise play early in the race. We've still got 13, 14 miles to go here. And so Mary's going to bury herself a little bit. And then I imagine she's going to come off the gas and set up for the sprint and get off the front. But for now, she wants to get that gap probably out to a minute to sort of just totally take the spirit out of Carrie, just to pound out all hope, remove it all. Bicycle racing is about suffering, and often there's punishment involved in that suffering. Somebody else wants you to sort of give up, pack it in for the day, and that's what they're doing here against Carrie. Now, Carrie has a huge heart. I don't think there's any packing it up, and I don't think there's any giving it in, but there is getting too far behind. And we'll just watch here a little bit as well, take a quick shot on Mary, and then we're going to return to the men's race. Just give you a shot of Mary. She's looking comfortable. We'll update that as we get updates from the helicopter, as we say. And we'll just kind of go back here. It's sort of Grupo Compacto. Maybe we can look at the telemetry for the men, give us a sense that it is indeed Grupo Compacto for the men.
It is. Michael chasing just a little bit. He's not actually on a mountain bike right now, which would cause in something like this to be a minute behind. But he got, I think, trimmed off the back after that series of attacks. And this is often the way that it'll go. They'll attack pretty hard for a little while, then they will back it off. Attack hard for a little while, back it off. Now, have you ever considered in these races? I mean, you're key in the team that decides what these are going to be. When you get to a flat race like this, have you considered offering up some league points for different objectives along the way? Say, for example, the second, sprint here, there, a measly, 10, 5, and 3 points for the first, second, third that come across. Have you ever considered those kind of intermediate points that might go into league standings?
Absolutely. There's a different, we can look at a number of different preems, if you will, whether it's, prizes or points. What we also tend to see is these races are a little bit more animated than you would typically think, right? So a lot of the flat races in Zwift sort of set up, and they are just a sprint to the end. And what happens is you get riders who are sprinters, and they go to the flat races. And you get riders who are climbers, and they go to the climbing races. When you have a league, however, what you get is they all need to ride all the time. So the sprinters come out on the climbing rides, and the climbers come out on the sprint rides. And then what happens is the tactics change dramatically in these rides, because we've got, for instance, Mike Davis off the front here with a couple of other people, I think. So there's a hard attack here, and we can sort of see Mike trying to get a gap here. And so what you see is, if you're not a sprinter on a flat stage, you want to get away. You don't want to wait for the sprint, because not only do you know that you're probably not the greatest sprinter in the world, but you're surrounded by people who can sprint. So that drives some exciting tactics. We see that here. You see Mike Davis sort of going up this little dig of a hill. He finds any hill, he's going to go hard up it, right? And and so he's going to try and break this group up. He doesn't want all the sprinters to stay until the end, and that's what you see happening. And you see that they'll pull teammates in. So while Plommers has just raced, he's in here for Mike in Team X. I imagine Team X is also trying to take some of the top spots for Kim, so Kim doesn't lose a lot of points this week, and somebody who he's competing against doesn't gain a lot of points as well. And so that's kind of what you're going to see. And if we go to 8 here, we can see that Thomas is working, really hard. You got the face grimacing. He's got an awesome poster there. And if you didn't believe we're pulling in people from all over the world, unless you read German, I believe you're going to have a hard time with that poster, but a cool poster nonetheless. And so you see a lot of different tactics. So we got to try and balance that. As well, but we will be injecting some of that in just for the sheer excitement of it. Maybe not necessarily, but when you view it, and what you'll also see in those sorts of races is people will do what they shouldn't do, and go for a preem, and then that'll cost them the race.
Yes. Kim talked about a little bit of that in the previous iteration of one of the live events that he did, just doing a little bit too much too early, and then unable to recover quite the way he wanted to. That's the gamble you take. Do you go for a prize or a few points that might bump you over somebody and then in the end lose it? Is it playing it safe? But that's part of the drama that makes this so entertaining. Okay, as we look at Jeff Muse here, disembodied, floating in the middle, no jersey. Sorry, I hope that's not a violation of the mixer terms of service. Probably not, but not the way he's doing it anyway. He's wearing a top. He is. It's just an interesting top. Okay. But you mentioned, Tomas there, Jen Rush, who is doing a really nice job staying in this group. This is his kind of race today. The climbers might leave him behind, but not today. Mike brought back into the fold. They didn't let him go. They're about to begin this third lap. This sprint zone has the ability to really kind of animate on its own, right? We see that banner in the distance. Everybody is reminded of their fastest time. And somebody always decides that they're going to push it at the front. I think we're going to see that in this case. Is it Berkhold? Is it Young? Who is it that's going to do it? There is somebody off the front there. Maybe it's Morrison digging on the front. As we look at it from Muse's point of view, he's just trying to slide right into that group and not get left behind. He's the rider that the camera is centered on right there in the middle. Red stripes across his back. Little bit of a gap starting to develop there as somebody pushes it off the front. It's nothing to concern yourself with right now. You can put some folks in there. But Pavels does come through and really attack. This is the current view. This is live, what we would expect to see. He decides he's going to go off the front here, try to get a little bit of momentum and see if there's anybody who wants to come with him. Sometimes it's just a survey. The attack itself will be a question to the rest of the group. Do you feel like going hard? If so, check yes. Kind of like that note that would end up in your locker in middle school. Do you like me? Check yes or no. Do you want to race with me? Pavels looks around. Maybe Berkhold checked yes and slid it back in his locker. Maybe Young did as well and dropped it off to him during second period. But it looks like he's got a whole gang of gigglers, a gaggle, if you will, all around him. Mike Davis just trying to hang into this group right now. This is what this looked like just a moment ago. Yeah, that top knot's not helping you out, bro.
Yeah, no, I have to say I really enjoy watching the riders, because you look at them and 1 minute they're smiling and then they look distressed, and now you see Mike's doing a little bit of recovery here. He's talking to himself, he's trying to convince himself, no, this is all good, I'm in here, I can just relax, and you talk to yourself and try and calm yourself. In the meantime, on the front, Kurt is like, okay, I've got you guys, I am going to drill it up and see if I can lose you and put you in a spot of bother. And we see him really going hard on the front here on camera 2. And I'll just do a look back. He is getting a gap.
Yeah, he is.
It's interesting to see this. I think, he's a strong rider. And it looks to me like he is going to try and make this stick. But that's going to be a tall order. There is a long way to go here yet today.
No kidding. Long way to go. In fact. Yep, absolutely. There's at least 10 kilometers left, and that is a big, fast group of strong riders. A Wessinger right there in that group as well. Someone who definitely has some pursuit skills. Berkhold, who we mentioned before, has been spending a lot of time. Maybe the best sprinter in this group right now might be Adam Webb, who has kind of been hidden there since he kind of kicked this thing into gear. Joachim Plommers, also one of the better sprinters in this group. Maybe one of those folks will rise to the top here. Okay, Davis looking like he wants to bridge up to the leader here, Pavels. They're not going to let two guys go. That's the problem, Mike. You find yourself chasing pretty hard there, and what ends up happening is that you alert the group to the real danger of that guy off the front. He's not his teammate, so he doesn't owe him anything, right? Maybe that's what he wants. He wants to set this up maybe for Plommers, or set it up so Plommers can set him up. It's like Inception. It's like a dream within a dream. What's going on in Mike Davis's head? No clue. Well, we do know what's going on his head. That'd be that sweet top knot. Not sure if that's like a bread tie that he's got that sucker put together with. The other guy we want to concern ourselves with, there's Young trying to bridge up. Now you've got some folks. Look how close they are. This is not, they're going to just onesie, twosie back to the group here. Or really, they're just kind of hopping from one club to the next. They're all going to end up in the same one. No one's going to go away from any other. And here they come. They've pulled him in. Plommers, Gendrouche. Now here's where often the attack comes. So Vang digging it a little bit harder on the front. Morrison as well. Could there be another counterattack over the top? Very likely, because this is when you do it. When the group comes back together, your teammate comes over the top and counterattacks just as you make the connection. That's how you blow fast riders off the back. They've done a little bit too much work. They've taken a few too many cups out of the punch bowl, and it runs dry. They can't do anything about it. All right, back to the women's race. We see that Mary, showing how strong she is drilling it on the front here, trying to get Jillian Bearden off the back, the Team Fearless rider. Styler still in this group, but Inslee has come unhinged. She was in that group, and now she's 2 seconds back based on this attack by Wilkinson. It's just too late in the game, I'm afraid, for Inslee. She may not be able to, this Kiss B and PTZ rider, she may not be able to stay as close to these riders as she would like to. It's a long, thin line. You need that wheel. It's just deceptively up there, and her heart rate is high. She has rung the bell. I'll tell you, I hit 185.
She's got to make this move right now. She's got to get that.
It's now or never. It's now or never, and she does. And I hit that heart rate yesterday, and I can tell you, it hurts. It sucks. There are no words you can say. And Styler is going to do what she needs to do, I think, to get onto the back. It relaxes just a little bit in the front. That gap begins to close, and they come down the hill, and there she is, attached again. Mary is on the front, showing why she is so strong. Now, the others, if they're really smart with managing the gap and the distance between the next wheel, they can do much, much less work here. And that's what they need to do. Mary's the strong rider here, but I think Jillian can sprint around her at the end. Maybe this is Styler's opportunity. She may fashion herself or see herself as a sprinter as well. All right, Bearden now with a little bit of a drift to the front here. Wilkinson, that would be Mary, taking a little, maybe a couple of turns off there, just long enough to try to recover that heart rate. This is your women's race right here, and they are just outside of 12 kilometers to the finish. It's going to be a big, exciting finish for these folks. The folks who are starting to feel the suffering, Inslee, she looks like she might have rung the bell a little bit there, the PTZ rider, because not only is her gap growing, that is from the group that she wants to catch, but her watts per kilo are dropping. So she's not really, and it's all over the place. She's not sustaining. But Carrie has found a group to work with. That's Gemma Onkers, Stotts, the other Fearless rider, and they are working together, and she's going to try to get as many points out of this as she possibly can. There's Gemma right there looking at her view, her sweet animation behind her. That's pretty cool. They're trying to pull back just a couple of riders. Now, you've been in races before, and so have I, Frank, outside, even inside, where you get a little group together and you can start sled dogging that group. I talk about sled dogging a lot because it's something I'm really, really good at. Do you know what sled dogging is, Frank?
I do not.
What you do is you find yourself a group of dogs, right? In this case, Connerbear's got Onkers and Stotts. And you get behind those dogs and you start mushing. Let's go, girls. Ha! Yeah, let's go. Woo! and you get them going a little bit more. You tell them there's a target out there. Asperheim, just a little bit further ahead. Yeah. And you start sled dogging those riders, and you get a nice little train going. You take a pull at the front. You can do a little bit of work, but mostly you've got to get those folks working with you. And in this case, let's be honest, for you, right? Because you're the one who really, really wants to pull that back. And sometimes if you've got a musher in a group, you can do much more than you can if you're just quiet, just sitting there doing nothing. Now, they're probably not going to pull back, now almost 2.5 minutes to this lead group. Certainly not at the pace that they've been going, coming around the big gold riding statue right here.
Well, I think
they're probably going to be able to hang on.
Yeah, I think, it was wise for Carrie to bring these guys back together because she's going to get the benefit. Not only do you get that, sled dogging effect, but that group as a group is going to move faster, right? So you've got 3 up front in terms of the break and what looks to be the deciding race. And you've got Connor here with 3 as well. And if they can all sort of stay together, and I noticed that I think Gemma went by there, which is utterly fantastic. But if they can all stay together and they can start working together, and Mary's the only one working in the front group. Now granted, Mary's very strong, but it is 3 against 1 as well, and then you can start to play some tactics, which is maybe you let Mary go. And if we look here, Mary's backing off a little bit. And just sort of, letting the other people work. And this gives you the opportunity to pull back some time. The problem is, if we look at the telemetry, is that's 2 minutes real time inside the game. It's more about distance, but that's 2 minutes. That's going to be incredibly hard to bring back, if not nearly impossible. The front group just has to basically sit up. So it's going to be tough today with what's left in the race for them to get back. But that would be the normal tactic that you would use. Carrie can kind of sort of wait up, get a group, and then help pull them along. And even if she's at the front, she's getting a benefit from the riders in the group.
Yeah, and she is, in fact. So as we look at the Connor group here, we can see the work that is happening there. They're a really nice pace, actually. Asperheim, who can see essentially the work that she's doing, the rider from Norway, she definitely can see them coming. And they're stronger as a trio than they would be alone. But back to the men's group, we saw this attack a little bit earlier, but the group has never let any one individual get more than just a few seconds. Bordieri, as we mentioned before, not running with a bona fide power meter. That creates some issues without power. There's just a little bit more variability. They may not trust that, and they know that it's not going to count in the overall standings. Now, you might want to partner with a rider like that to see if you can escape a little bit, but the rules will catch up with you as well. You definitely don't want to be working with somebody who's not a regular racer. And it looks like these folks not only know how to race, but they know the culture of virtual racing as well. There's BM, ladies and gentlemen, on those of you who know Mixer. BM is to ride with riders off the front who don't have the right equipment. So there were some questions about the right equipment just a little bit ago. Each one of these folks is on a real bike. It's not a special bike. In fact, some cases, it's a really ordinary bike. Now, the more snobby you are in the bike world, just like the car world or the cheese world, maybe, you tend to snob up a little bit and get the nicest parts and carbon everything, and it's pretty darn cool. But you definitely need a power trainer, something you can connect either your rear wheel to or lay your whole wheel in. And we've got a big kick by Jeff Muse here, trying to get away, trying to do something exciting. Wessinger not far behind him. Steve Young not letting him get up the road either. Was it Matt Looker who instigated this? Perhaps it was. Little gap off the front now. But again, as we've seen before, these surges don't tend to really break anyone out of this prison we call the peloton, but instead rather just animate it, stretch it out for a little bit. It's more that like they're playing with Play-Doh here. But it's Jeff Muse. He heard his name called early. He wants to use this hill to try to get a little bit of a gap, and everyone is attacking to see if they can get themselves a collection. No one wants to sprint against 20 dudes, but they do want to sprint against 3 dudes. because they've got a much better chance of at least finishing third. Am I right?
That's correct. We're going to watch
math.
Jeff here a little bit. Yeah, we're going to come back here and watch a little bit of a replay as Jeff goes off the front here. Big attack. Now, what everybody thought was he was going to just grab that wheel of the guy that was off the front, sort of sit back down. And so everybody starts to sit back down with him. Oh wait, Jeff didn't sit back down. And now you see him just hammering,
smiling.
Just, off. Yeah, and I think, it's interesting. I've noticed this about some people. They smile when they grimace, right?
Yes.
And when they suck in a lot of air, and you see now as he sort of sits back down and he relaxes, and it's just a force of how they clench their jaws and how they open it up for oxygen, and they look like they're smiling, which is very intimidating for the rest of the people, because everybody else is like, mouth open, drool running over their lower lips, and they look at the other guy and he's smiling, and they're like, "Holy cow!" So that's
the big finish, right? 1 kilometer to go. He makes an escape right there at the beginning, but ends up getting pulled back a little bit. But this is exactly what he wanted. Steve Young, moored in that group. They're going to sprint for the big finish here. Only 3 riders are going to be counted in this, and it is probably the 3 riders who we're going to take to the top of this list. Now, as we see that chase group, they can actually see this group coming in. They're getting really close to the finish here. They can see the finishing banner. The first rider jumps. Bordieri tries to go, but is it moored? No. Jeff Muse looking at the rider he needs to, trying to tuck right into that stream. There's Young, Steve Young. They've hit the banner. They're coming across right here. Super exciting, unbelievable as they come around. Steve Young, the sprinter on the day, comes around everybody at the end. Moored comes in that second position. Jeff Muse in the top 3. But that's what he needed. He needed to separate the likes of Looker and Gendrouche and those others, Berkhold, who are about to finish right now. But as we look at Jeff Muse, was his position as he looked around, smiling, grimacing. Who knows? It's freaky to look at. But here he comes, Jeff Muse, digging deep, trying to just hold that wheel. But it was too much. Steve Young really coming out over the top, comes around one rider at the very end. Could he come around him at the end? No. Moore does just enough to stay around right where he needs to be. That was impressive. You can check out all of these final standings as they're unofficial right now over on the CycleView.CVR World Cup. You can watch the riders that you want on CycleView. You can check out the current race standings on CycleView. You can do all of the really awesome math that comes with a race like this. Really exciting stuff. So many great riders. Mike Szymanski over there streaming as well. I like to jump in there and check out those results whenever I get the chance. Pop open a new screen and look at that data myself. Now, as we look at this men's field, that was a really exciting finish, even in the remainder of the group. Styler hanging on here to Wilkinson. Well, no, Wilkinson with an escape. She escaped somehow.
Yeah, she just upped the power here. I think she's going to try and hold it for 5 minutes. And I think Styler and Bearden just sort of gave up the ghost here. And I think Mary went at a distance that she thought she could hold of about 5 kilometers to the finish. And so I think she thinks she can hold 5 watts per kilogram or thereabouts till the end. And unless Bearden and Styler get on their horses and ride, this is pretty much game over. They'll be sprinting for second.
They will, in fact, be sprinting for second. Just a quick update. Steve Young in first. Jeff Muse in third. Mike Ford not using a real name. It doesn't match his league registration. Mord is he sometimes gets called. And so that would be Young, Muse, and Looker. Boom, 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 right after each other. That's a pretty strong finish. A lot of people are like, well, why can't you use your gamer tag? Because you'd have somebody be butt pancakes, right, and decide that they're going to race under that just because they want to hear ridiculous names said. No, we use real names here, and any variation of your name, graze that area a little bit. I certainly like knowing who these people are in real life as well as in the game space. That makes it much more entertaining for me. But Maybe you like ridiculous gamer tags all over the place, but I don't know. Maybe you do. Okay. So Wilkinson really dropping the hammer there as they came through that last section. They're only 5 kilometers from the finish, and she's going to do what she does, which is just to hold this high level of power. She is a real athlete here. This is going to be exciting stuff, because if things don't change, if they can't break up her dominance here, and you have folks that don't make the race here, as sometimes what will happen, she could find herself with a ticket to Canada, couldn't she?
Absolutely. It's certainly shaping up for that to be the case. And, if we look at the telemetry here just really quickly, we can see she's 20 seconds off the front, and the other two is sort of backed off as they set up for the sprint. So they're looking to, just lose a couple of points today. They're in a good position to do that. It'll sort of be one sprinting against the other at the end, most likely. Now, maybe one will try and go long, but that's a bad gambit. You have to sprint here and then go long. So if you feel like you've got that ability, you'll do that here. If you feel like you just got more pure power right at the end, sort of the Ferrari type engine, then you'll wait until the last 300 meters and do it from there.
Yes, you will. Well, and so Mary Wilkinson finds herself across the line first. That's worth 1,000 points. That second position worth an awful lot as well, too. It's worth 998 points in this scenario based on the field size. And so Mary Wilkinson will be able to hang on to her, Jillian Bearden will be able to hang on to her top spot. Carrie Conabear will be able to hang on to the 4th spot overall in this based on those finishes. The points matter. So sometimes it's great to win, but sometimes it's even better just to finish really, really strong. Okay. We should expect that we're going to see an exciting sprint finish from the Bearden-Styler group. They're right there together. You got to close that gap, though, Styler. You definitely don't want to get left behind there. That's Lindsay Styler from the UK, by the way. Starting to be around evening time for her. We tend to see folks and how their schedules work out based on when they can race and when they like to race with their teammates. So you find Lindsay Styler just up there in the front. Really just trying to stay with Bearden. Now, the Fearless Vixen matchup is one that we know really well. Looks like Vixen has, they definitely have the jersey selection that they prefer. Is that a custom Fearless jersey that's now been added to the game, or is that another one that they've repurposed, Frank? It's hard for me to actually tell with some of these jerseys.
I think that's a repurposed one. I'm not absolutely sure, but I believe that one's repurposed. I think otherwise you probably see Vixen on there somewhere.
I think you're right. So they've selected colors that that have an in-game jersey. I mean, that's not uncommon to what happens in some video game environments when you can't customize the skins at all. There are college teams in Overwatch who wore very specific skins that were part of another team, and they just repurposed them so they could all match. And that's the case here as well. Okay, as we look at how this is finishing up, we've got some chase groups on the course. The telemetry making a lot of sense now. That gap is growing. It's probably going to be a minute before it's all said and done. But she's off the front there. She's going to come through the strand one more time there, come around for that big sprint finish. If you look very closely there, you can see the words finish, extending down through a dotted line, dashed line rather, to that spot. But 45 seconds, has been the big end of that gap. Maybe Jillian and Lindsay going to try to pull this back a little bit more, or maybe they're just gearing up to try to sprint this out. No one wants to be in that third spot out of that group.
Yeah, I think what you see is I think they've sort of now as I say it, of course, they're going a little bit harder, probably trying to weaken each other. But I doubt they're going to try and pull this all the way back. And what starts to happen is you start to play, tactics to each other and see if you can maybe catch the other one napping. A little bit earlier we saw Styler sort of dangling off the back, and so if we go to camera 3 as an example here, we can take a look at the heart rates. You've got Styler at 180, you've got Bearden at 182. Now, everybody's max heart rate's a little bit different. So they appear to be, well matched here. But one might have, top heart rate of 200, and one might have a top heart rate of 190, in which case that's a big difference. So you're not really sure here, but you see they are testing each other, just seeing if they can, what we call right away from the other person, which is if a person is truly all the way to max and you just up the pace, you don't even have to do an attack per se, but if you just up the pace, eventually they're just like, okay, you know what? I'm done. Legs won't turn over anymore. Everything hurts, and I'm just going to let you go. And that's kind of what it looks to me like they're sort of testing out here. No one wants to do the big attack here because you burn that match that you're trying to save for the sprint, and your sprint will be subdued. Like if you do a sprint here at this point with just a few minutes to go, then you don't have enough time to fully recover and get your max sprint back. And so neither one wants to sort of do an attack here. Now, if you did an attack here, you'd have a good chance at getting away, but then you have the other sort of pain, which is I just did an attack. I just went super hard. My muscles are starting to burn already. And oh, guess what? You get to do that for another 3 or 4 minutes. You've got to keep the pace high. You've got to keep the quads burning, and you've got to stay away. So I'm a true sprinter. I always believe I can win in the sprint, or maybe it's that I just don't like to suffer that much, and so I always wait right to the end. And so you'll see a lot of people do that. We're going to go to camera 1. We're going to watch Mary cross the line. We're going to talk to Zwift about getting arms raised in races because I think it would be very, very cool for the avatars to raise their arms.
Very appropriate, of course. That's something that happens in the real world. I did get yelled at one time, finishing like 26th, coming across a road race line and throwing my hands up. I had a commissar maybe bark at me a little bit. I was just glad to have finished. I wasn't around anybody else. I wasn't going to crash, but maybe he thought I was. Okay. Wilkinson coming down the final stretch, 200 meters to go. She's going to put herself across that line. Very, very happy. The rest of the world fills in there. And now we see the finish, the sprint that's going to come. Fearless versus Vixen. This is not for a lot of points. There'll probably be only 2 to 3 points that separate these riders based on their finish, but this is for the pride. The Fearless folks are trying to, they want to see, there's that dig by Bearden. She comes big across, 7.8 watts per kilo, 8 watts per kilo, digging a little bit harder. Styler coming around her, trying to close that distance down. Styler behind. There she is, just in the back there. Will she actually be able to come around her at the very end? Hard to tell. She's definitely got the velocity. Is there enough runway left for her to do it? Maybe so. Looks like it could happen. I think that is too close to call. It looked like Lindsay Styler, Team Vixen, came around Jillian Bearden at the very, very end there. Hard to see. We'll have to check that out. I don't think the replay is going to tell us what we want to see. As I glance over to the way things look on Mixer just a couple of seconds behind, no, it looked like it was a dead heat. Oh, my goodness. Impressive.
Yeah, I think looks like Jillian got it according to the telemetry, but we're to the 1,000th of a second maybe equal here. So it would be a few thousandths of a second that separated those two riders, and I think we've probably got a replay that we can go and take a look at.
Let's check that sucker out. That would be nice. So as they were getting ready for the big finish here, there's Wilkinson. This is exactly what she saw as she came across. Nice and strong. The rest of the world populates as she finishes the event. But the other two riders, Bearden and Styler, Vixen and Fearless, shaping up for what would be a strong push across the line. Styler sits nicely at the front of that and decides that she's going to do that push. Bearden then comes around her, goes really, really hard. A little bit of a late reaction by Styler. She does step on the gas, but by then there's already a gap. And if you fall out of that slipstream, you may find yourself way off the back. You got to close that distance yourself. No aerodynamic advantage. Bearden continues to lay down the power. Styler then finally catches that draft. You notice a little bit of a slingshot that comes around, and they come up to the line. Where is the line? That's the question. Is it the shadow? Is it the front of the banner? Is it the middle of that kite? But here's what we see. It is a dead heat. Jillian and Lindsay showing Jillian a little bit ahead to get those points. Again, they're not going to impact likely the end of the season here, but they are for pride, right?
Well, it's
pride.
Yeah, of course, you got Mary out, doing well, but those 2 points could absolutely matter. We've seen a lot of very close races at the end of the leagues where 2 points, racers are tied. You want to get all those points you can, especially when you're in that position. And you saw the one had the momentum. Jillian, got the jump, and then she did a little bit of a dig there right at the end. And by 4/100ths of a second, if I'm looking at my telemetry information correctly, she crossed the line.
Yep.
Yeah, just barely in front of her, and so she saved the day. And if it had been another 4 meters, she would have missed it. She would have been third. But that's what it's all about: timing in the sprint.
Yep, timing in the sprint. You've just watched us complete this London course, Pancake Flat. There's more on the horizon even later today, and it turned out to be a sprinter's delight. Even though these fields separated a little bit, it was the sprinters who were able to do the most work. The folks that we thought were in fact going to be fabulous today were fabulous. So we've got a couple hours, about an hour and 45 minutes off before we bring you the next big race, and it's one that you do not want to miss. Trust me on that. It's going to be a good one. If you are here on Mixer or on Facebook or one of these other ones, click that follow and you'll be notified when we go live. There are amazing women and amazing men that are going to race here in just a couple of hours. You do not want to miss their heroic stories. We'll bring them to you right here. So for all of our folks who helped to make this possible, Saris, Cyclops, of course, Power Tap, all the equipment. You ask about the equipment? There's the hardware. This is the hardware that supports these races, and of course, Garneau gear. So thanks for watching. On behalf of my guy Frank, I'm Chris Haskell, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Actually, about an hour and a half from now. See you soon.